close your eyes and let the world around you slowly fade away. Feel your breath becoming calm, steady, and soft, as if you are in rhythm with an ancient sea. With every inhale, imagine the salty breeze of the Aegean, and with every exhale, let the weight of the present dissolve. You are no longer bound to the time you know. Instead, you are being carried back across centuries, to a land where gods walked among mortals, where stories were woven into the stars, and where whispers of marble temples echoed across rolling hills. The air grows warmer, touched by the golden glow of a sun that seems eternal. You find yourself standing on a quiet shoreline, where the gentle waves lap against smooth stones polished by endless tides. The sky is a canvas of shifting pinks and oranges, the kind of twilight that lingers forever in memory. Somewhere in the distance, faint music drifts across the water, soft lyres plucked in a slow, graceful rhythm. Each note hums like a lullaby, welcoming you into the embrace of the ancient Greek world. As you walk along this shore, the sand beneath your feet feels cool, kissed by the receding tide. The horizon stretches endlessly, and across it rise the outlines of hills crowned with olive trees. Their silver-green leaves shimmer, whispering secrets to the wind. Between the groves, you glimpse tiny villages, clusters of clay, and stone homes where life moves unhurried. The smell of freshly baked bread mingles with the earthy scent of oil lamps flickering to life. Families gather in quiet courtyards, voices low, movements slow, their laughter blending with the hush of the evening air. The world around you is still and timeless. Farmers return from their fields, leading donkeys laden with baskets of figs and grapes. Children chase one another in lazy circles, their bare feet stirring dust as dusk deepens. And yet, in this simple life, there is a sense of something greater, an awareness that the mortal world is never truly alone. For above these people, upon the distant summit of Mount Olympus, gods and goddesses watch with unseen eyes. Look upward now. Beyond the hills, the mountain rises, dark and immense against the soft glow of twilight. Its peak is wrapped in silver clouds, glowing faintly as if lit from within. This is Olympus, the home of Zeus and his kin, a palace hidden in mist, where immortal beings weave the fate of mankind. You cannot see their halls, but you feel their presence, like a hum in the air, like the warmth of unseen firelight. A hush falls over the landscape. The villagers quiet their songs. Even the cicadas still their endless hymn, as if waiting for something. Then, high above, a faint rumble of thunder rolls, soft and low, not frightening but steady, like the heartbeat of the world. It is Zeus, king of the gods, reminding mortals of his dominion. Yet his voice is not one of anger tonight. Instead, it is calm, almost protective, like a father murmuring a lullaby to children far below. The sea reflects the last glow of the sun, turning from gold to silver as the stars begin to awaken. Each one flickers gently, and in their patterns, shapes emerge, the heroes and monsters of countless tales. The night sky is not empty. It is a canvas filled with memory, myth, and warning. The Greeks who looked up at these same constellations saw not distant suns, but stories that guided, comforted, and taught. As you sink deeper into this world, your steps carry you inland, through narrow paths that wind between olive groves. The ground is cool, and the air carries the faint fragrance of wild thyme and rosemary. In the distance, torches flicker as shepherds guide their flocks into wooden pens. Dogs bark softly, then fall quiet again, as if even they know the gods are near. The night is calm, and your heartbeat slows to match its rhythm. Ahead, You see the glow of a temple rising out of the shadows. It is simple yet majestic, its columns tall and white, glowing faintly beneath the starlight. Villagers approach quietly, carrying small offerings, jars of oil, loaves of bread, a wreath of flowers. They move slowly, reverently, for they know that within these columns rests not just stone, but the presence of divinity. You watch as they bow their heads, whispering prayers not of fear, but of gratitude. Gratitude for harvest, for rain, for protection through the night. The temple hums with silence, a silence so deep it feels alive. You linger there, breathing in the faint scent of burning incense, and feel your thoughts become weightless. You are neither mortal nor God. You are simply part of this world, drifting gently with it, like a leaf upon a river. And as the stars above multiply, casting silver light across the land, you realize that this is only the beginning. The journey has just begun. Soon you will walk among the gods, hear their stories, and follow the footsteps of heroes whose names echo through eternity. For now, let the night embrace you. Let the music of lyres and the whispers of olive leaves carry you deeper, deeper into dreams of the ancient Greek world. The night deepens, and the stars stretch brighter above the mountains. The villagers return quietly to their homes, yet the air remains alive with a presence greater than themselves. Your gaze lingers on the peak of Mount Olympus, rising above the clouds like a sacred secret. Slowly, your steps carry you higher, away from the quiet courtyards and gentle olive groves, toward the realm where mortals rarely tread. The path is narrow, lined with stones smoothed by centuries of footsteps, yet tonight it feels as though it waits only for you. The air grows cooler, carrying the scent of pine and mountain thyme. Each breath is crisp, refreshing, filling your lungs with stillness. As you climb, you hear not the clamor of the village, but a quiet hum, a vibration as soft as the flutter of a bird's wing. It is the mountain itself, alive with the whispers of the divine. Clouds drift around you, silver in the moonlight, parting slowly as if guided by unseen hands. Through the veil of mist, shapes begin to glow. Pillars of marble, golden roofs, shimmering halls that hover as though carved from starlight. This is no ordinary mountain. This is Olympus, the dwelling of the gods, hidden yet eternal, its presence both comforting and humbling. Within these shining halls, the gods move gracefully, their voices blending with the wind that sweeps across the peaks. At the center sits Zeus, his throne carved of cloud and gold, crowned by the storm. His gaze is steady, his eyes filled with the weight of ages. Yet tonight his presence is gentle, like distant thunder promising rain to the fields below. Lightning glimmers faintly in his hand, but it is no weapon tonight, only a lantern, casting warmth across the gathering. Beside him, Hera sits, queenly and proud, her robes flowing like rippling silk. Her eyes shine with the wisdom of eternity, and though her power commands respect, there is tenderness too, a watchful care for the mortal world below. She is the goddess of marriage, of bonds, of family ties that weave people together like threads in a tapestry. Beyond them, the halls glow with other figures, each a story, each a symbol. Athena, clad in silver armor, her shield resting at her side, her gaze both fierce and kind. She embodies wisdom, guiding mortals toward reason, yet her presence brings peace, not fear. Poseidon, tall and strong, the salt of the sea clinging to him, his trident glimmering like starlight. The ocean's endless tides move within his breath, steady, eternal, like the rhythm of sleep itself. Apollo strums his golden lyre, its notes gentle as flowing water. The music drifts across Olympus, down to the villages, even into your own heart, each string a lullaby that settles the restless mind. Artemis, his twin, moves softly among shadows, her bow resting at her shoulder, her eyes gleaming like the moon. She watches over forests, rivers, and every wild creature, her steps silent but filled with grace. Around them gather countless others, Hermes, swift and light, his sandals carrying him between worlds. Demeter, her hands filled with wheat and fruit, her smile warm as the sun. Aphrodite, radiant, her presence as calming as the tide of love that binds all things. Though they are mighty, though their power spans heavens and earth, tonight they do not thunder or rage. Tonight they are calm, like guardians of dreams, their voices mingling with the wind, their songs weaving a net of peace. The stars above seem to echo them, glowing brighter, as if every constellation bows in rhythm. From where you stand, you see it all, not with eyes alone, but with the quiet of the soul. You feel the gods not as distant rulers, but as part of the night, as close as your breath, as steady as your heartbeat. Their stories are not just tales, but rivers flowing through time, guiding mortals with lessons of courage, love, and destiny. You linger there, surrounded by their presence, until the mountain itself feels like a cradle. The hum of Olympus is steady, soothing, endless, carrying you gently into the heart of their eternal realm. And as the clouds close softly again, hiding their halls from mortal sight, you realize their whispers remain, drifting into your dreams, preparing you for the tales yet to come. The mountain still hums with the memory of Olympus, and though the clouds draw their veil once more, the gods remain near, like distant echoes carried on the wind. You descend gently along the stone path, but your mind drifts far beyond the mountain slopes. For the stories of the gods are not bound to their halls alone. They spill into the valleys, the seas, and the very dreams of those who walk beneath the stars. As the night deepens, you find yourself resting by a quiet stream, its water clear and silver beneath the moonlight. The stream sings softly, a gentle murmur over smooth stones, and its song reminds you of voices that tell the tales of divine beings, their joys and their quarrels, their loves and their storms. Each ripple carries a story, and as you listen, the myths begin to unfold. Zeus, king of the sky, whose hand holds thunder, is not only a ruler but a figure of countless tales. His loves reach far, touching mortals and goddesses alike, weaving destinies that shape the world. Some see him as stern, a father of storms, but in these stories, he is also tender, a spark of life, a force that brings change as surely as rain brings growth to the fields. Beside him stands Hera, and her voice is strong, filled with dignity. She is not merely queen of Olympus, but the guardian of bonds, the keeper of vows. Her gaze is sharp, her heart proud, yet she too is touched by the long threads of longing and sorrow. In her, mortals see both the warmth of devotion and the weight of jealousy. She is like the fire in a hearth, nurturing, protective, but fierce when stirred. Then comes the wisdom of Athena, rising like dawn over the still waters. Her stories are of clarity, of battles fought not with rage, but with thought. When mortals call upon her, they do not ask for storms or harvests, but for guidance, for the quiet strength of reason. She appears in shining armor, yet her eyes hold calm. Where she walks, strife turns to strategy, and despair turns to resolve. Far to the sea, Poseidon's tales rise like waves. His trident stirs the depths, summoning storms that test sailors and calm that saves them. His moods shift as the tides, sometimes calm, sometimes wild, but always immense. Mortals look to him as they would the horizon, endless, powerful, and unknowable. His laughter rolls like thunder across the waves, yet his silence is as deep as the ocean's floor. Apollo's lyre hums gently still, its notes carried on the night breeze. His stories are golden, filled with light and song. He brings prophecy, music, and healing, his presence like the warmth of the sun after a long shadow. And by his side is Artemis, her tails wrapped in silver moonlight, guiding hunters, watching over those who wander beneath the stars. She is freedom itself, her steps soft, her bow ever ready, a guardian of what is untamed and pure. And then there is Aphrodite, whose whispers linger like the fragrance of blooming roses. Her tales are those of love, gentle or fierce, fleeting or eternal. Where she passes, hearts stir, longing awakens, bonds are woven. Mortals remember her not only in moments of joy, but in the quiet ache of desire, in the silence between words. Hermes drifts like a breeze, his laughter quick, his steps swift. He is the messenger, the bridge between realms, slipping through shadow and light alike. His stories are playful, clever, filled with wit and trickery, yet his presence comforts too, for he guides souls safely to where they must go. All these voices weave together, a chorus in the night. They are not distant, not cold. They are as close as the stars above, as near as the beating of your heart. Mortals tell their stories not only to remember the gods, but to understand themselves, to find meaning in love and struggle, in fate and freedom. The stream beside you murmurs on, carrying these voices away into the distance. And as you rest, eyes half closed, you feel the myths surround you, gentle as a blanket of sound. You realize the world of ancient Greece is not merely stone and sea, but a living tapestry of stories, stitched with divine breath, glowing softly beneath the eternal night. The night draped its velvet cloak over the ancient world, and the sea sang softly against the shores of Crete. Here, where salt and stone meet, stories take root and grow into legends. And in the heart of this island stood a palace like no other, the dwelling of King Minos, ruler of men, yet bound by the will of gods. Once, Poseidon, lord of the sea, gifted Minos a magnificent bull, white as foam and strong as the tide. It was meant as a sign of divine favor. But every gift from the gods carries a hidden weight, a test that bends the course of fate. In secret and sorrow, from this bull was born a creature unlike any other, the Minotaur, half man and half beast, cursed to walk between two worlds. To hide the shame, Minos commanded Daedalus, the greatest craftsman of his age, to build a prison worthy of such a terror. And so, stone by stone, the labyrinth rose, a maze so vast and winding that no mortal who entered could ever find the way out. Its corridors coiled like serpents, its shadows stretched like endless night. The Minotaur was locked within, condemned to darkness, his breath echoing against the walls, his hunger forever unsatisfied. But the gods were not done with Crete. Each year, from Athens came a terrible tribute. 7 young men and 7 maidens, sent across the sea as offerings to the beast. Their fates were sealed the moment they set foot in the labyrinth. None returned. Athens mourned, and Crete grew fat with its power. Yet legends always birth heroes, and Athens had one waiting in the wings, Theseus, son of Aegeus, a prince with the fire of destiny in his veins. He swore to end the cruel tradition, to free his people from the weight of sacrifice. With sails stretched against the wind, he journeyed across the waves to Minos' shore, determined to meet the beast in its lair. But fate does not weave its threads with strength alone. In the halls of Knossos, Theseus met Ariadne, daughter of Minos. She saw in him not only courage but also the fragile light of hope. Her heart trembled with the desire to save him, and perhaps to save herself. In secret, she placed in his hands a simple gift, a ball of golden thread. "Take this," she whispered. "Unwind it as you walk into the labyrinth. When the battle is done, follow the thread back to me." And so Theseus descended. The stones groaned beneath his steps, and the air grew thick with silence. Shadows shifted like living things. The deeper he went, the louder the pulse of his own heart became, until at last, in the center of that endless maze, the Minotaur waited. The creature's eyes gleamed with fury and sorrow, a beast born not of malice but of divine cruelty. Still, its hunger was real, and its power unyielding. Theseus stood firm, gripping his blade, and the two collided in a storm of flesh and steel. The clash shook the walls. The Minotaur's roar was thunder, Theseus's breath a whisper of defiance. Again and again they struck, man against monster, until finally the hero's blade found its mark. The beast fell, its breath fading into silence, its curse dissolving into dust. And then silence. The labyrinth, once alive with fear, lay still. Theseus gathered the golden thread, his path clear, and retraced his steps through the twisting corridors. The thread led him back to Ariadne, waiting with trembling hands and shining eyes. That night, the island of Crete slept. The sea was calm, the stars steady, as if even the heavens paused to listen. For in the heart of the labyrinth, a curse had ended, and in the hearts of two young souls, a new story had begun. But as all myths remind us, no victory is without shadow, and no love without trial. The journey was far from over. The ship cut through the waters like a silent arrow, its sails swollen with the breath of the Aegean wind. Upon its deck stood Theseus, weary yet triumphant, and beside him Ariadne, her gaze fixed on the horizon with both hope and fear. Behind them, Crete lay shrinking into the mist, its labyrinth silenced, its monster slain. Before them stretched a sea that shimmered like liquid silver beneath the stars. For a time, the world seemed kind. The waves cradled the vessel, the night wrapped them in velvet calm. Ariadne, once a princess bound by duty and dread, felt the chains of her father's palace fall away. She imagined a new life, far from the shadows of Minos and the curse of the labyrinth, a life woven with Theseus, the hero who had dared to defy fate. But the gods do not sleep, and the threads of destiny rarely follow the dreams of mortals. When the ship reached the island of Naxos, Theseus and Ariadne set foot upon its shores. The sands were pale as bone, the trees whispered secrets to the night air, and the silence of the island carried a weight too deep to name. Here, Ariadne's heart soared with possibility. She dreamed of temples rising to honor new gods, of children laughing in the sunlight, of peace. Yet as she drifted into sleep beneath the branches, Theseus watched her with a gaze clouded not by love, but by something unspoken, hesitation, doubt, or perhaps the invisible hand of the divine. When dawn painted the sky in gold and rose, Ariadne awoke to emptiness. The ship was gone, its sails vanished into the distance. On the sand lay only her footprints and the echo of her name. Theseus had left her, abandoned by choice or by the silent command of higher powers. Her cries mingled with the wind, her sorrow sinking into the island's stones. Alone, she wept, her dreams crumbling like sandcastles before the tide. Yet even in despair, the gods listen. And it was Dionysus, the god of wine, ecstasy, and the wild, who heard her lament. From the forest he came, crowned with ivy and accompanied by a procession of satyrs and maenads. His laughter was both thunderous and tender, and his presence filled the air with a fragrance of grapes and honey. To Ariadne, abandoned and broken, he extended not pity but reverence. "You were never meant to be forsaken," he told her, his voice like the hum of the earth itself. "You are destined to be more than a mortal bride. You shall be mine, and your name shall live among the stars." And so, Dionysus took her hand, lifting her from sorrow into a realm beyond human grief. Together, they celebrated, the island erupting in dances and song. Ariadne was crowned not with gold, but with a diadem of eternal light, and the god promised her that when her mortal days were done, that crown would shine forever in the heavens as a constellation. Thus Naxos, once an empty shore of abandonment, became sacred ground, the meeting place of god and mortal, of despair transformed into divinity. Ariadne's fate was sealed not in loss, but in transcendence. Meanwhile, Theseus's ship pressed on toward Athens. His heart carried both the weight of victory and the stain of betrayal, though the reasons behind his choice remained a mystery even to himself. Was it cowardice or divine compulsion? No mortal can truly know. But as his sails filled with the restless winds, the gods watched, waiting to twist his triumph into yet another tragedy. For destiny, once set into motion, cannot be stilled by human hands. And so, while Ariadne rose to the heavens, Theseus sailed toward a homecoming that would change his life and the life of his people forever. The sea stretched endlessly, its waves carrying Theseus back toward Athens. Victory glimmered in his memory. The Minotaur slain, his people freed from tribute, his name whispered with awe across the Aegean. Yet even victories cast long shadows, and fate, ever patient, had prepared its cruelest twist. Before leaving Athens, Theseus had promised his father, King Aegeus, that he would raise white sails upon his return if triumph was his. If defeat awaited him, if death claimed him in Crete, then the sails would remain black, a sign of mourning for a son lost to the labyrinth. It was a simple signal, a thread of hope stretched between father and child. But as the winds pushed the ship closer to Attica's shores, Theseus, burdened with exhaustion, perhaps distracted by the weight of his deeds, perhaps cursed by the whims of the gods, forgot. The sails remained black, billowing like funeral banners against the pale sky. Upon the cliffs above the harbor, Aegeus stood watching, his eyes fixed on the horizon. Each day since his son's departure, he had kept vigil, heart bound to the sea, mind chained to fear and longing. And now, at last, the ship appeared, its dark sails rising against the dawn. His heart shattered. To Aegeus, the sight was final. His son had perished, and the gods had taken what little joy life had given him. Grief consumed him like fire through dry grass. With no words, no cries, he stepped forward, casting himself from the cliffs into the hungry sea below. The waves swallowed him whole, and the waters bore his name forever after. The Aegean, a sea marked by sorrow. When Theseus's ship reached the shore, the cheers of his people filled the air, but joy dissolved into grief as word spread of the king's death. Theseus, triumphant yet broken, carried the crown not in celebration but in mourning. The hero who had conquered the labyrinth now stood as king of Athens, but his reign began not with glory, but with loss. The black sails, once meant as a sign of death, became a curse etched into memory, a reminder that even the greatest victories can be stained by oversight, by fate, by the subtle cruelty of the gods. For what is triumph, if it arrives hand in hand with tragedy? Yet Athens would not falter. The people looked to Theseus not only as a hero, but as a leader, one who had faced monsters both within and without. He embraced the weight of kingship, his sorrow etched into every decision, his father's fall a shadow that guided his steps. The city began to change under his hand. No longer just a collection of villages, Athens grew into a polis, a place where unity could blossom. Theseus dreamed of a greater Greece, where law and order might rise above the chaos of endless wars, where the will of the people could shape destiny as much as the whims of the gods. But the gods do not surrender so easily. From their thrones on Olympus, they watched, their eyes glinting with both interest and suspicion. For in this mortal king they sensed something dangerous, not just courage, but ambition, the spark of a new order that might one day challenge their eternal reign. And so, the story of Theseus did not end with the Minotaur, nor with his father's death. His path stretched onward, tangled with love and betrayal, war and unity, tragedy and hope. The sails of fate, once black, continued to ripple in unseen winds, and Athens, city of dreams, would become both cradle and crucible for a new world. The days after Aegeus's death were heavy with silence, as though even the stones of Athens mourned their fallen king. Yet within that silence, a new voice began to rise, the voice of Theseus, now crowned not by choice but by the weight of destiny. His heart still ached with grief, but grief often sharpens the resolve of those chosen by fate. Athens at that time was not yet the city the world would one day revere. It was a patchwork of villages, each with its own chieftain, each clinging to its traditions like islands in a restless sea. Rivalries festered, pride fractured unity, and the gods themselves seemed to delight in watching mortals quarrel among themselves. But Theseus looked upon his people and dreamed of something greater, of one city, bound together not only by walls, but by the spirit of its citizens. He began with unification, weaving the scattered settlements into a single polis. No longer would Attica be divided into fragments, each bickering for power. Instead, they would be joined under the name of Athens, with one hearth, one council, one identity. It was a daring vision, for mortals seldom relinquish their pride, and kings seldom surrender their crowns. Yet Theseus, with patience and wisdom, persuaded, cajoled, and bound them together. He established festivals where once there had been only isolated rites. The Panathenea, a celebration of the goddess Athena herself, became the great thread that wove every village into one tapestry. Through song, sacrifice, and procession, the people began to see themselves not as rivals, but as Athenians. In the glow of sacred fires, unity took root. But Theseus's genius was not only in festivals and words. He laid the foundations of order, creating laws that bound both rich and poor. Though the gods still reigned above, mortals began to sense a new kind of power stirring, a power that came not from Olympus, but from themselves. For in the councils of Athens, voices rose, decisions were weighed, and justice was no longer just the whim of kings but a seed of shared responsibility. This was the dawn of something fragile yet eternal, the idea that the many could govern, that the will of the people could shape destiny alongside the decrees of the divine. It was not yet democracy as the world would come to know, but it was the whisper of its beginning, carried on the winds across Attica's hills. At night, as Theseus stood upon the Acropolis, he gazed toward the horizon where the sea kissed the sky. He thought of his father's fall, of Ariadne's loss, of the labyrinth's shadows, and he wondered if the gods resented the path he carved. For each step toward unity seemed to pull mankind further from the chains of Olympus, closer to a world of their own making. And indeed, the gods did watch. From her high throne, Athena, wise and far-seeing, smiled upon the city that bore her name. She whispered wisdom into the ears of its people, guiding their hands, steadying their hearts. But others, Poseidon, who still tasted the salt of betrayal, and Zeus, whose throne tolerated no rivals, watched with unease. For if mortals found strength in unity, who could say what heights they might one day reach? Yet for now, Athens flourished. The streets grew busier, the markets richer, the festivals brighter. Songs echoed of Theseus not only as a slayer of beasts, but as a builder of cities, a unifier of souls. And beneath those songs, in the quiet of the night, a greater truth stirred, that the greatest battles are not fought with swords and labyrinths, but with words and choices in the hearts of men. Though Athens began to breathe as one, the world of gods continued to shimmer just beyond mortal sight, their influence threading invisibly through every decision, every triumph, every sorrow. The sky above the city was not empty. It shimmered with the presence of the divine, each star a silent witness to the interplay of mortal courage and immortal will. On Mount Olympus, the gods gathered, their immortal forms radiant with power and mystery. Zeus, lord of the skies, his thunder coiled in his hand, observed the growing city with both pride and wariness. He had bestowed freedom and punishment in equal measure, and now he watched to see whether mortals would rise too far, too fast. Beside him, Hera's eyes, sharp and steady, followed the lives of Athens' citizens. She knew that love, ambition, and betrayal would ripple through the polis like invisible tides, shaping fates far beyond human foresight. Athena, ever watchful, felt her heart swell with quiet satisfaction. The city that bore her name stirred with wisdom, strategy, and courage. Through Theseus, her mortal champion, she whispered guidance. Each council meeting, each law enacted, each festival celebrated was subtly touched by her hand. Mortals did not know it, yet her influence shaped their minds, their spirits, and the very rhythm of their days. Poseidon, restless as the tides, stirred at the thought of a city rising upon the land while his dominion remained the sea. His trident tapped the clouds, calling forth storms in distant waters, reminding mortals that the gods' eyes never slumber. The winds carried his warnings, the waves whispered cautionary tales, yet Athens continued, steadfast in the ambition of its mortal king. Apollo's golden light danced upon rooftops, guiding travelers and inspiring poets. His music hummed in the marketplace, beneath the olive trees, in the hearts of lovers and warriors alike. And Artemis, her silver gaze falling on the forests surrounding the city, watched over those who wandered in shadow, protecting the innocent, guiding the hunters, and preserving the wild that still held secrets of the divine. Even Hermes, fleet-footed and playful, moved unseen among mortals, carrying messages, secrets, and small miracles. Through his invisible footsteps, fortunes shifted, chance encounters occurred, and the invisible tapestry of destiny grew more intricate. Among these gods, mortals often felt a presence, glimpses of shadow, a sudden breeze, the laughter of unseen companions, but the divine remained mostly unseen. Yet in Athens, their stories seeped into life itself. Festivals honored them, sacrifices sought their favor, and myths shaped the minds of children and elders alike. Even the laws of Theseus, though mortal in origin, carried the subtle weight of divine inspiration, guiding justice and harmony. As night fell over the city, torches flickered along the streets, their glow mirrored by the stars above. In this quiet, one could almost hear the whispers of Olympus, the laughter of gods, the soft hum of wisdom, the warning of storms yet to come. Mortals slept beneath these watchful eyes, dreaming unknowingly under the gentle sway of divine hands. Athens had grown from villages to a city, and yet it remained both fragile and eternal. The gods, with all their power, could not fully control the hearts of men. Yet every decision, every action, every love and betrayal was a note in the endless symphony of fate. And in that symphony, the city of Athens moved toward a destiny that would echo through the ages, its pulse intertwined with mortal courage and divine will, its story just beginning to unfurl beneath the gaze of the stars. The city of Athens thrived under Theseus, yet the world beyond its walls remained wild, dangerous, and filled with the shadows of legend. Mortals walked their streets with newfound pride, but beyond the hills and forests, the land remembered the whispers of monsters, of heroes, and of gods whose tempers could ripple through the lives of men like sudden storms. Even as the sun rose over olive groves and marble temples, stories unfolded that reminded Athens that courage was never free of consequence. Minotaurs, serpents, and strange creatures of myth were not confined to Cretan labyrinths. Echoes of their existence lingered in forgotten caves, deep forests, and distant islands. Travelers spoke in hushed tones of beasts glimpsed between trees, of shadows too large to belong to any mortal, and of eyes that gleamed with ancient hunger. Yet heroes also arose, drawn by necessity and divine callings. Some came to Athens seeking honor, others fled curses only the gods could bestow. Among them, the sons and daughters of myths carried within them both gifts and burdens. One might bear a spear touched by Apollo's light, another might carry a charm whispered to them in dreams by Athena herself. Each hero was a bridge between mortal ambition and divine intervention, a living testament to the fragile line between courage and hubris. Theseus, though king, never forgot the lessons of the labyrinth. He knew the weight of choice, the danger of pride, and the subtle ways in which fate could twist victory into tragedy. He trained the youth of Athens, not only in sword and spear, but in wisdom and courage, teaching them to see beyond fear and glimpse the threads that bind mortals to destiny. In the forests surrounding the city, the creatures of old stirred. Centaurs roamed under the moonlight, their hooves echoing like drums of forgotten wars. Harpies screeched above cliffs, their voices carrying warnings and riddles. And deep beneath the mountains, serpentine dragons slumbered, dreaming of chaos and fire. Yet even these monsters, fierce and eternal, were shaped by the whispers of gods. Poseidon stirred the sea dragons, Zeus's lightning struck in warning. Artemis guided the hunters who walked the shadowed paths. Athens itself became a stage for these intertwining tales. Festivals turned into tests of bravery. Hunts in the wilderness became quests for glory. Even the ordinary became extraordinary, as citizens found themselves dancing in a world where myth touched every corner of life. The city hummed with stories. Merchants spoke of strangers who had bested monsters. Children whispered about heroes who vanished into night and returned with treasures or wisdom, and poets spun tales that shimmered with divine presence. Through it all, the gods watched. Some rejoiced in mortal valor, some smirked at their folly, and others wove the strands of destiny into intricate patterns beyond mortal comprehension. Mortals felt only glimpses, a sudden gust of wind, a fleeting shadow, the shimmer of sunlight on water, and yet those moments carried lessons, warnings, and inspiration. And in the quiet hours, when the city slept under a blanket of stars, one could almost hear the heartbeat of the myths themselves. They whispered of courage yet to be tested, of monsters yet to rise, of heroes yet to discover the depth of their own souls. Athens was alive not merely with stone and market, but with the breath of legends flowing through every alley, every grove, every whispered prayer beneath the watchful eyes of Olympus. The stories continued, endless as the stars, reminding mortals that the dance of gods, heroes, and monsters was eternal. And as the night deepened, Athens dreamed, just as its people, unknowing, dreamed, of the adventures and trials that awaited them, carried on the invisible wings of fate. The city of Athens breathed beneath the gentle glow of dawn, its white marble temples reflecting the first light as if the very stones held the memory of the gods. Yet while mortals went about their lives, unseen hands worked tirelessly in the threads of destiny, weaving the fates of heroes, kings, and gods alike. In hidden groves and shadowed valleys, quests began quietly. Young warriors, inspired by the tales of Theseus, sought glory in forests where monsters lingered and in caves echoing with forgotten sorrows. Each path was both a journey and a lesson, for even the smallest choices resonated through the lives of men and touched the ever-watchful gods. One such hero, a youth named Callias, ventured into the mountains carrying a bow blessed by Apollo. His task seemed simple: hunt a creature that had been troubling a nearby village. But myths rarely offer simplicity. The creature was no ordinary beast. Its eyes glimmered with the cunning of Athena and the ferocity of Ares, a living embodiment of challenge itself. Callias' courage wavered, yet his heart, guided by the whispers of the divine, pressed onward. Meanwhile, within the city, a scholar named Lysandra uncovered ancient scrolls beneath the agora, scrolls that spoke of treasures hidden in lands far beyond mortal sight. Her discovery did not escape the notice of Hermes, who watched from the shadows with mischief in his gaze. Messages, riddles, and sudden inspirations carried her toward adventures that would test not only her intellect, but her very spirit. Back on the edges of the forest, hunters spoke of shadows that moved with intent, of whispers that teased the mind, of illusions that could bend reality itself. The Minotaur's story lingered in every stone, in every echo of wind, reminding mortals that the labyrinth's lessons were not confined to Crete. Courage must be constant, vigilance unwavering, for fate has a memory longer than any human life. In the heavens, the gods observe these mortals with fascination. Athena, proud of her city and its champions, lent subtle guidance, ensuring that the lessons of bravery and wisdom reached those who would carry them. Dionysus, watching from Naxos, smiled at the unfolding drama, knowing that even the smallest mortal joys and fears could ripple across time. Poseidon, restless as ever, stirred waves in distant seas, a reminder that the elements themselves are the gods' instruments of trial. Even Theseus, now king and teacher, watched from the Acropolis as the new generation of heroes emerged. He saw in their eyes the same fire that had driven him through the labyrinth, the same spark that had made Athens rise from villages into a city of destiny. And yet he knew that each victory carried its own shadow. Every success invited new challenges, for the balance between mortal ambition and divine design was never still. Night fell again, and the stars shone like silent witnesses over the city. Every whisper of wind, every flicker of torchlight, carried with it the subtle reminder. Athens was alive not merely with the steps of mortals, but with the pulse of myths themselves. The gods, the heroes, and the creatures of legend all moved in patterns invisible to human eyes, and every choice, however small, could echo across centuries. In this quiet, one could almost feel the heartbeat of destiny itself, an endless rhythm of courage, challenge, and wisdom flowing through the streets, the forests, and the very stones of the city. Athens slept, yet its story continued, woven with shadows and light, laughter and sorrow, hope and the quiet promise that legends never truly end. As Athens slumbered beneath the silver glow of the moon, the realm of Olympus buzzed with quiet unrest. Even in their eternal power, the gods could not resist the subtle pull of mortal ambition. Zeus, ever watchful, observed the city with a careful eye, his mind turning over the threads of destiny like a weaver inspecting a tapestry. Each mortal choice, each heroic act, was a spark that might illuminate greatness or ignite chaos. Poseidon, restless and unpredictable, stirred the oceans surrounding Greece. His trident hummed with unseen energy, sending ripples that bent the tides and whispered warnings to the sailors and fishermen below. Storms gathered where none were expected, carrying both peril and a strange, intoxicating thrill. For even the humblest mortal, a single misstep upon the waves could summon the power of the gods themselves. Athena, calm and deliberate, watched over Athens with both pride and quiet concern. The city's youth, emboldened by the tales of Theseus and their own rising courage, ventured into forests, caves, and ruins where shadows lingered and legends walked. With careful guidance, she wove subtle clues into their paths, an arrow glinting in sunlight, a rustle among the trees, a whisper in the market, ensuring that the lessons of wisdom and valor would reach those ready to receive them. Yet divine harmony is never simple. Dionysus, ever playful and unpredictable, stirred the hearts of mortals with music, revelry, and intoxicating dreams. Some stumbled into joy and courage, others into confusion and peril. Even the bravest heroes could not resist the allure of his influence. Wine, song, and laughter could be both blessing and test. In this delicate balance, the line between triumph and disaster blurred like twilight upon the sea. Within the city, a new generation of heroes emerged. One, a young warrior named Eryx, carried a spear said to have touched the sunlight itself. Another, Callista, held a shield crafted in secret by divine hands, its surface catching the light in patterns only the keenest eyes could decipher. Each bore the silent legacy of the labyrinth, the courage of Theseus, and the unseen touch of gods who watched with curiosity, caution, and occasional amusement. Even ordinary Athenians felt the stirrings of myth in their daily lives. Marketplaces echoed with tales of monsters glimpsed at dawn, of travelers who returned with knowledge beyond human comprehension, and of strange events that seemed to bend reality itself. Every step through the city carried a whisper of the extraordinary, a gentle reminder that mortal lives were threads in a tapestry far larger than they could imagine. And so, Athens flourished in this tension, between mortal ambition and divine will, between courage and temptation, between the ordinary and the legendary. The city became a living story, a place where every action, however small, resonated with the heartbeat of eternity. The heroes trained, the scholars studied, the poets sang, and the gods watched, each presence unseen yet deeply felt. In the quiet hours before dawn, the city held its breath. The stars above glittered like distant fires, and the soft hum of destiny flowed through every street, every grove, every whisper of wind. Mortals slept, yet their dreams were filled with shadows and whispers, courage and fear, and the endless promise that legends never truly end. They only shift, waiting for the next step, the next choice, the next heartbeat in the eternal dance of gods and men. As the sun rose over Athens, painting the city in soft gold. The invisible threads of destiny trembled like wind-swept leaves. Mortals walked unaware of the subtle patterns shaping their lives, yet every choice, every heartbeat, every whisper carried weight far beyond their comprehension. The gods, ever watchful, stirred in their realms, unseen currents weaving through the city and the hearts of its people. Theseus, the king, now more seasoned and contemplative, felt the invisible pull of both triumph and forewarning. His victories had built Athens into a city of unity and courage, yet he knew that with every light comes a shadow. The gods, with their endless patience, had watched his rise, his choices, and his grief, and now they began to tilt their attention toward the next act in the unfolding drama. Athena, wise and vigilant, guided those whose hearts sought justice, wisdom, and courage. In the hidden corners of the city, she whispered lessons into the dreams of scholars, heroes, and children alike. Through subtle signs, a flicker of torchlight, a pattern in the stars, a bird's sudden flight, she shaped minds toward understanding and foresight. Mortals, unknowing, carried pieces of divine insight as if born within them. Yet not all eyes on Olympus were benign. Poseidon, his trident glinting with restless energy, stirred unease in the distant seas. Where waves lapped against distant shores, sudden storms reminded mortals that power beyond comprehension still lingered at the edges of their world. And Dionysus, ever capricious, danced unseen among Athens' celebrations, sprinkling both inspiration and confusion, delight and disarray, ensuring that life remained unpredictable, thrilling, and slightly dangerous. In the forests and mountains surrounding Athens, heroes tested their courage. Callias, carrying Apollo's bow, discovered that even the smallest shadow could hide lessons of immense significance. Callista, with her shield reflecting divine light, learned that protection is not always physical, and that the heart of a hero is tested as much by choice as by battle. Their paths intertwined, crossing with ordinary citizens whose lives, too, were shaped by the quiet hand of fate. The city itself pulsed with quiet magic. The agora hummed with conversation, the streets echoed with footsteps and laughter, the temples glowed in the morning sun. Athens, though mortal in its stones and roofs, thrummed with myth, the heartbeat of legends woven into every street and square. Mortals did not see the invisible threads guiding them, yet they felt their influence in intuition, courage, and the subtle turning of events that often seemed miraculous. Even Theseus, carrying both sorrow and hope, sensed the vast scale of forces at play. He had faced monsters and kings, endured betrayal and loss, and shaped a city from fractured villages. Yet now he realized that Athens itself was a living entity, nourished not merely by human hands, but by the delicate, unseen movements of gods, monsters, heroes, and dreams alike. As night descended once more, the stars shimmered above, silent witnesses to the unfolding tapestry. Each mortal choice, each heroic endeavor, each playful or wrathful act of the divine added a thread, weaving Athens into a story that would echo across time. And in the quiet, one could almost feel the city breathing, alive with the whispers of gods and heroes, carrying the eternal promise that legends never truly end, but continue, shifting and flowing, waiting for the next heartbeat in the endless dance of fate. The city of Athens slumbered beneath the soft silver of the moon, its streets quiet, its temples bathed in gentle light. Yet above, unseen, the gods moved with patience and intent, their presence like the whisper of wind through olive trees, shaping destinies without mortal eyes to witness. Each heartbeat of the city carried echoes of choices yet made, and each choice, no matter how small, tugged upon the threads of fate. Theseus, now seasoned by triumph and sorrow, walked along the Acropolis in the quiet hours before dawn. Though alone, he sensed the invisible company of gods and heroes. Athena's guidance lingered like a subtle warmth in his mind, while Dionysus's unseen laughter teased the corners of his thoughts. Even Poseidon's restless power hummed through the distant sea, a reminder that no victory is ever absolute and no city wholly secure. Around Athens, the natural world hummed with hidden life. Forests rustled as if aware of mortal ambition, hills shimmered under starlight, and streams whispered secrets to those who listened. Mortals, unaware, carried within them both courage and folly. Young warriors trained under the watchful eyes of their elders, scholars pored over ancient texts, and children chased one another through the streets, their laughter echoing like tiny threads of joy in the great tapestry of life. Yet the gods, in their playful and sometimes jealous nature, were never idle. Hermes darted unseen among the city, weaving chance encounters and small miracles, ensuring that paths crossed in unexpected ways. Apollo's golden light touched hidden scrolls, revealing wisdom to those ready to perceive it. Artemis watched the forests, guiding hunters and travelers alike, ensuring that even in darkness there was safety for those who respected nature's secret rhythms. In the distant mountains and along the Aegean coast, monsters stirred, relics of older times and older fears. Serpents coiled beneath rocks, centaurs trotted silently beneath the moon, and the shadows of creatures long thought vanquished lingered, their presence a quiet reminder that courage is never fully earned, that heroes must always be ready. The stories of Theseus and the Minotaur had faded into legend, yet their lessons endured, woven into the very soil of Greece. Athens itself became a living stage where gods, heroes, and mortals intersected. The marketplaces buzzed with ordinary life, yet even in mundane acts, subtle threads of myth influenced events. A merchant's coin might slip into a traveler's hand at the perfect moment. A shepherd might discover a hidden cave. A poet might overhear a story that would become legend. Fate worked quietly, invisibly, touching all who dwelled in this city born of courage, loss, and divine watchfulness. Even Theseus understood that his role was not solely to lead, but to guide. He trained the youth, counseled elders, and reminded all who would listen that bravery, wisdom, and integrity were the pillars upon which Athens could thrive. Mortals, though unaware of the gods' intricate dances, carried within them the subtle echoes of divine influence, shaping choices and actions that would resonate for generations. As night deepened and the stars shimmered like scattered jewels, Athens dreamed. The city breathed with legends, every street a vein in the great body of myth, every alley a hidden path where gods and mortals might intersect. The heartbeat of destiny pulsed quietly, carrying the promise that no act of courage, no whisper of wisdom, no spark of joy would ever be forgotten. In this eternal rhythm, Athens lived, and with it, the dance of fate continued, unseen, unending, and infinitely patient. Athens awoke under a pale morning sun, its marble temples glowing like fragments of the heavens, while the streets hummed with the rhythm of life and the subtle pulse of myth. Though the city thrived, the threads of fate continued to twist and turn, bringing new figures into the tapestry of legend. These were not merely mortals, but souls touched by destiny, their hearts stirred by courage, curiosity, and the unseen guidance of the gods. Among the olive groves and quiet hillsides, a young girl named Thalia practiced the art of stealth and observation, guided by the lessons of Artemis whispered into her dreams. She moved like shadow and breeze combined, listening to the whispers of the wind, reading the patterns of light across the leaves. Though still mortal, her courage and cleverness hinted at greatness, and the gods watched with quiet amusement, approving the sparks of potential within her. Meanwhile, a boy named Myron trained in the agora, lifting weights and honing his skill with the spear. He carried not only physical strength, but a sharp mind, inspired by Athena's subtle guidance. Each motion, each stance, each careful decision was a quiet echo of the wisdom of ages, for though mortals do not perceive it, divine threads often guide even the smallest gestures toward greatness. The gods themselves took note of these new figures. Athena, ever protective of Athens, lingered nearby, unseen but present, planting lessons in courage, strategy, and discernment. Dionysus, playful and unpredictable, wove dreams and fleeting moments of inspiration, teaching that joy and creativity could be as potent as strength or knowledge. Poseidon stirred distant waves, reminding mortals that danger often travels unseen and that bravery is measured not in absence of fear, but in action despite it. Beyond the city, in forests, caves, and the hidden valleys of Attica, remnants of old monsters stirred, sensing the rising strength of mortals. Shadows moved like silent sentinels, waiting for the moment when courage would meet challenge. The lessons of Theseus and the Minotaur lingered still in the land itself, whispered in the rustle of leaves, the babble of streams, and the flicker of torchlight at twilight. Athens became a crucible for these emerging heroes. The city's streets and hills were not merely geography. They were classrooms of life, teaching resilience, wisdom, and the delicate balance of action and consequence. Festivals, markets, and assemblies became arenas where small choices could ripple outward, shaping destinies in ways no mortal could fully perceive. Even ordinary citizens unknowingly played roles in the unfolding drama, their actions touching threads of fate woven by gods and heroes alike. Theseus, now older and wiser, watched the growth of this new generation with pride and caution. He understood that the city's future depended not only on law, wisdom, and courage, but on nurturing the hearts of those who would inherit the mantle of legend. In quiet moments, he walked among the youth, speaking softly of choices, integrity, and the invisible threads that bind mortals to the divine, guiding them toward paths that would test and refine their spirits. As twilight fell over Athens, casting long shadows across the streets and hills, the city shimmered with unseen magic. Every whisper of wind, every flicker of torchlight, every heartbeat carried the silent echo of gods and heroes. Athens breathed with life and legend intertwined, a city alive not only in stone and stonecraft, but in dreams, courage, and the quiet hum of destiny flowing endlessly through the hearts of its people. The sun dipped low over Athens, casting long, golden shadows across the Acropolis, as if the city itself were stretching before a night of quiet reflection. The streets hummed with whispers of the day's end, but beyond mortal perception, invisible currents of fate began to stir, nudging heroes and ordinary citizens alike toward the challenges that awaited them. Thalia, nimble and alert, crept through the olive groves under Artemis's unseen guidance. Her task was simple in appearance: retrieve a small token hidden in a grove, left by one of the city's elders as a test of vigilance and cleverness. Yet even in simplicity, there lies complexity. The grove seemed alive, shadows bending unnaturally, whispers flowing like wind through the leaves, hinting that the task carried lessons far beyond the mortal eye. Meanwhile, Myron faced his own trial in the Agora. A challenge set by his mentors seemed straightforward: to demonstrate skill and precision in spear work before the city's elders. But unseen forces of the divine stirred the air. A sudden breeze shifted the target, the sunlight glimmered off polished bronze, and a small, seemingly inconsequential misstep could transform a simple feat into a test of patience, focus, and courage. As they navigated these challenges, the gods watched with delicate interest. Athena's gaze lingered over every movement of mind and body, shaping understanding through subtle inspiration. Dionysus, unpredictable and ever playful, scattered hints of surprise and joy, reminding mortals that delight and risk are entwined, and that cleverness and laughter are sometimes the greatest allies in trials. Poseidon's distant influence rippled through the nearby rivers, whispering reminders that courage is tested not only in grand deeds, but in the resilience to face uncertainty and danger. Beyond the city, remnants of older myths stirred quietly. Forests and mountains hid creatures whose lessons were harsh and subtle, testing not only strength but the depth of character. Centaurs moved among the trees, offering riddles and guidance to those willing to listen. Shadows of serpents twisted through underbrush, not always to harm, but to teach caution and awareness. Even monsters, long relegated to stories, played roles in shaping courage, wisdom, and endurance. Within Athens itself, ordinary citizens played unknowingly crucial roles. A child dropped a lantern in a path that later guided Thalia to safety. A baker's forgotten basket of bread became a sustenance gift for a wandering hero. Every small act, whether intended or not, wove into the great tapestry of fate, demonstrating that even the simplest choices can echo through legend. Theseus, observing from the Acropolis, felt the pulse of these trials in his own heart. He understood that true leadership was not merely in guiding a city, but in preparing it for the unseen forces that shape destiny. Each hero, each ordinary citizen, carried within them a spark that could ignite greatness or falter into folly. It was in the delicate balance between guidance and freedom, between divine influence and mortal choice, that Athens' enduring strength lay. As night fell and the stars shimmered like scattered jewels across the sky, the city held its breath. Invisible currents of courage, wisdom, and destiny intertwined, creating a rhythm that would carry Athens forward. Mortals slept unaware of the threads that guided them, yet their dreams shimmered with hints of the extraordinary, echoes of gods, monsters, and heroes, promising that every heartbeat, every choice, and every whispered lesson would continue to shape a city destined for legend. Night deepened over Athens, and the city exhaled softly beneath the gaze of silent stars. Every decision made by mortal hearts, every brave step through forests and streets, sent subtle ripples through fate, touching paths unseen and shaping moments yet to come. Thalia returned from her trial, her mind alight with lessons only subtly felt. The olive grove had seemed ordinary, yet the shadows had whispered secrets of caution, intuition, and patience. Even in success, the gods reminded her that true courage is quiet, and its rewards often unfold in ways unseen. Myron, too, faced his consequences. A miscalculation with the spear became a lesson in humility, focus, and adaptability. The elders nodded at his efforts, unaware of the divine nudges that had shaped his path. Every step, every stumble, carried the invisible weight of guidance from Athena and hints of Dionysian whimsy, teaching resilience in the most subtle of ways. Within the city, ordinary citizens unknowingly intersected with these trials. A baker's lantern illuminated a path for a wandering hero. A child's laughter reached a weary traveler, lifting a spirit that would soon face unseen danger. Athens thrummed with life, ordinary yet extraordinary, alive with threads of myth woven into every heartbeat. Above, the gods watched in quiet fascination. Zeus measured balance, Athena refined lessons, Poseidon stirred the edges of caution, and Dionysus whispered delight into moments of uncertainty. Mortals, unaware of these influences, walked their paths with courage, curiosity, and resilience, each choice a thread in the endless tapestry of legend. And as dawn painted the city in soft gold, Athens stirred awake, unknowing yet deeply touched by the whispers of fate. Dreams lingered in the minds of its people, hinting at courage, challenge, and the quiet promise that the stories of gods, heroes, and mortals were far from finished. Dawn spread its gentle light over Athens, and the city stretched awake, its streets bathed in a soft glow that seemed to shimmer with unseen magic. Though mortals went about their daily lives, whispers of the divine lingered in every corner, carried by wind, shadow, and the quiet pulse of the city itself. Thalia wandered along the olive groves, recalling lessons from her earlier trials. The subtle guidance of Artemis whispered through the rustle of leaves, teaching her to see the unseen, to trust intuition, and to understand that courage often manifests in quiet moments, not in grand gestures. Every step became a meditation, a dance with fate itself. Myron, sharpening his spear in the agora, felt the invisible eyes of Athena upon him. His missteps from the previous trial still hummed with lessons, reminding him that wisdom and patience often weigh heavier than raw strength. Each thrust, each stance, each breath was now a delicate interplay of body, mind, and unseen divine threads shaping his destiny. Even ordinary Athenians were part of the grand pattern. A street musician's melody reached the ears of a young hero, sparking a fleeting courage. A vendor's careful placement of goods created a path that guided another towards safety. Every small act, unnoticed by the participants themselves, intertwined with the tapestry of legend, revealing that fate often moves through the simplest moments. Above, the gods watched with quiet amusement and keen interest. Zeus measured the balance between mortals and divine interference. Poseidon whispered caution in the edges of rivers and seas. Dionysus scattered joy and inspiration, a reminder that delight and unpredictability often test courage in ways strength alone cannot. Athena's quiet wisdom threaded through every action, unseen but profoundly felt. As night approached, shadows lengthened, and Athens settled beneath the glow of stars. The city breathed in sync with the silent rhythm of myth, every alley, grove, and marble square alive with potential. Mortals slept unaware of the delicate threads binding their choices, their courage, and their dreams to a story larger than any one lifetime. A story where gods, heroes, and ordinary hearts danced together in endless harmony. Night draped Athens in a velvet hush, and the city's breath mingled with the soft hum of fate. Every step of mortals and heroes alike sent ripples into the unseen, threads weaving through choices, courage, and whispers of the divine. Thalia moved quietly among the olive trees, her mind replaying lessons that were as gentle as the wind, yet as profound as the mountains. Artemis's guidance had been subtle, almost imperceptible, teaching that bravery was measured not by the grandeur of acts, but by the steadiness of the heart. Shadows of the grove seemed alive, hinting that every quiet observation, every pause, carried meaning far beyond mortal understanding. Myron, now more disciplined, trained under Athena's unseen eye. Each movement of the spear, each careful breath, was a negotiation with destiny itself. Mistakes were no longer failures, but teachers, guiding him toward precision, patience, and understanding that strength alone cannot define a hero. Courage and wisdom walked hand in hand, whispered to him in a language older than memory. Even the city's ordinary rhythms resonated with subtle magic. A merchant's careful arrangement of coins formed patterns that led the way for a wandering hero. A child's laughter in the marketplace echoed farther than it seemed, touching hearts in ways invisible yet significant. Athens itself was alive, a living tapestry of mortal action intertwined with the quiet hum of legend and divine influence. Above, the gods watched silently. Zeus measured balance and consequence, while Poseidon's far-off stirrings reminded mortals that the world held unseen perils. Dionysus whispered delight into moments of uncertainty, teaching joy and spontaneity as lessons of courage. Athena's guidance flowed through the unseen, subtle as a shadow, ensuring the growth of both hero and city. As stars shimmered above, Athens slept, unaware of the intricate web of fate enveloping it. The heartbeat of destiny pulsed softly through every alley, grove, and temple. Heroes and mortals alike dreamed of courage, choice, and unseen guidance, their stories echoing through time. A quiet, eternal dance where myth and life intertwined in gentle, unending harmony. Athens lay beneath a sky brushed with twilight, soft shadows stretching across its marble streets and olive groves. The city seemed to breathe as one, its heartbeat aligned with the subtle rhythms of gods and heroes, weaving threads of destiny that even mortals could not perceive. Thalia walked quietly along a hill overlooking the agora, her thoughts still lingering on the lessons of courage and perception. Artemis's influence guided her steps, teaching that observation and patience often wielded more power than sword or spear. Every rustle of leaves, every bird's flight, carried a quiet message. Even the smallest moments shaped the tapestry of fate. Myron, now steady and focused, practiced spear techniques near the city's walls. The echoes of Athena's wisdom resounded in his movements. Mistakes of the past had become quiet mentors, and every careful thrust reminded him that heroism was not only strength but foresight and resilience. Each choice rippled outward, affecting not only his own journey but the destinies of those around him. The city itself seemed alive with subtle signs of divine influence. A street musician's song guided travelers along safe paths. A humble vendor's actions, unseen by most, set into motion events that would later prove critical for both hero and citizen. Athens hummed with the quiet magic of everyday life, where the ordinary and the extraordinary were inseparably woven together. Above, the gods observed with patience and fascination. Zeus measured the balance between mortal ambition and divine oversight. Poseidon's distant, restless energy hinted at challenges yet unseen. Dionysus scattered inspiration and unpredictability, reminding mortals that joy and surprise often accompany the greatest trials. Athena's subtle guidance flowed invisibly, threading courage and wisdom into the hearts of the city's champions. As the night deepened, Athens seemed to hold its breath. Every heartbeat, every choice, every whisper of wind carried weight beyond mortal perception. Mortals and heroes dreamed together, their destinies intertwined. The city, alive with myth and possibility, pulsed gently, promising that the threads of fate would continue to weave their endless story, a quiet dance of courage, wisdom, and divine influence stretching across time. Night settled softly over Athens, a blanket of silver and indigo casting long, gentle shadows across the city. The heartbeat of the streets, the whisper of the wind through olive groves, and the faint murmur of distant waves blended into a quiet symphony that spoke of courage, choice, and destiny. Thalia, now wiser and more attuned to the subtle rhythms of the world, walked beneath the stars, feeling the lingering guidance of Artemis in every rustle of leaves. Each step reminded her that bravery is often quiet, that the smallest acts can carry the greatest weight, and that destiny, though unseen, always moves with careful purpose. Myron, spear in hand, stood upon the city walls, feeling the invisible threads of Athena's wisdom coursing through him. His past trials, his stumbles and triumphs, had woven a tapestry of resilience and insight. Every choice he made now echoed beyond his own life, touching others in ways neither he nor they could perceive. Around Athens, ordinary citizens moved with a grace that seemed effortless yet was infused with subtle influence. A baker's careful preparation of bread, a child's laughter echoing through the marketplace, even the quiet prayers whispered in temples, all threads in the vast, unseen web of fate. Mortals, unknowingly guided by gods, had become part of an eternal story. Above, the deities observed, each in their realm, yet connected to every heartbeat below. Zeus measured the balance of power and consequence. Poseidon's distant tides whispered caution. Dionysus scattered sparks of delight, teaching that joy and unpredictability are themselves lessons. Athena's quiet presence ensured that courage, wisdom, and justice were ever nurtured, flowing through both heroes and ordinary people alike. And so, Athens slept beneath the watchful gaze of stars and gods, a city alive with myth, legend, and quiet magic. Heroes and mortals, divine and human, danced together in an eternal rhythm, each heartbeat a step in the ongoing story. The threads of fate wove onward, infinite and unbroken, promising that though individual tales may end, the eternal dance of gods, heroes, and mortals continues, gentle, patient, and endlessly profound.